Welcome everybody. This is the SGDA Summit 2021. Right now we have our student talk with Luke Piazza, who will now take it away with the student talk.
Thank you, Tara. Yeah, so I'm going to be presenting a talk called The Student's Guide to Showcasing Games. I think this talk, or the reason I wanted to present this talk is because I think it's something that students kind of need to hear in the sense of its importance. I think school, just from my experience, has been great in teaching a lot of like hard skills. But if you're really looking to, I think, get into the industry, it's going that like extra mile, being able to put yourself out there, getting on companies' radars. That's really going to get you into that competitive market. And that's something that I've had a bit of experience with. And I will go into more detail about that right now. So, but before I go into that detail, I just wanted to give some background about myself. Hello, I'm Luke, and I went to Bradley University. It's a mid-sized like school in Illinois, so like the middle of nowhere basically. But we had a pretty good game design program. I had a couple professors who were working in the industry. One was at Volition, which is the Saints Row guys. I had someone who worked on Star Wars 1313 with LucasArts, so that was a really interesting story to hear about. And overall, I would say just a really good experience. Right now, I am a associate game designer at Illumix. We're a VR entertainment company, and we are working on Five Nights at Freddy's VR. So repping the company right now. Very fun experience so far working there. As well as I just love volunteering at conferences, and I love like showcasing games. I think it's one of the reasons why I just love our industry so much is because there's so many opportunities out there, and it's just a matter of finding them. I've volunteered for GDC. I'm volunteering here now at SGDA, so shout out to all the volunteers out there. And I've volunteered at a couple others that I'll get into in a little bit. And I've showcased at, again, plenty of conferences that I will also get into in a fat minute. So outside of that, I love dogs. I have a dog who is almost 18 at this point. So he's getting up there, but he acts like a puppy, sometimes a little too much. So yeah. So how this is going to go is I'm going to give some tips based off of my experience. Um, and then we'll go into like a QA afterwards if we have the time, which I'm sure we will. But yeah, I'd like to just give some tips on my experience. I've done conferences in person, online, nationally, internationally, locally. So I would just love to give your thoughts on. I tried to format this of like if I was looking to if like a couple years ago, if I was looking to try to get my first time through the door of like presenting a game at a conference, this is some of the things I would want to know. Um, so, tip number one. There are a lot of conferences. You'd be surprised. Like I know a lot of people know of like GDC, Indiecade, like those are some of the big ones, DreamHack, but there's more than you would probably think. Here are just some examples of ones that I've showcased at. So the top left was I did it in 2017 and 2018, which was DreamHack, easily my favorite. It was also in person too. So really great experience. That one was on like a national level. DreamHack was in Atlanta. So I've been showcasing there every time they've had it in person the past couple years, which is really nice. I've also showcased at Indiecade last year and the year before virtually. Uh, Bottom left was DevCom, which is actually in Europe, and GDS, which is bottom right, it's also in Europe. Pixel Pop is in the Illinois Chicago area, if I'm not mistaken. Showcase there too. And then the one where me and the other guy are like, flexing on everyone was actually a local conference for high schoolers of like um, giving high schoolers a tour on like what career paths they could possibly have. And I even reached out to the company and I said, hey, I've been doing game design. I could make a presentation about a game I've worked on and that as a possible career path. They were like, heck yeah, that sounds awesome. So I would say, some things to take away is that there's conferences all over the place and you just might not know it. Again, there's probably plenty of local ones that you might not have even considered. There's various national ones and even international ones that now a lot of people can present at. Like with the fact that a lot of them have been online and people have been adjusting to doing online conferences, you can really submit your game no matter where you are. You're not really bound to a location, which I think is one of the great things about online conferences is that it gives anyone the opportunity to showcase anywhere. If you just sift through the information, find out what's accepting your games, and yeah, there's plenty of opportunities. In fact, literally the reason why I'm here for SGDA is because for my senior project I was looking to apply for places to submit my game. Um, and I just found SGDA, and I, thought it was a very interesting concept. So, yeah, it's literally as easy as a Google search. So you'd be surprised. Another way to really get yourself through the door is volunteering. Oh my gosh, I cannot stress how important volunteering is in the whole grand scheme of like a game dev career. It's easily the most important reason, the biggest reason as to why I'm in the industry now is because I had a connection through a place I volunteered at, a place I showcased that was, able to talk to someone at the company, give me a recommendation. It's so important to be able to get yourself on the radar of the industry. So reaching out and volunteering some of your time will truly go a long way and can really help with getting your game at a conference. Like if you volunteer, there's plenty of opportunities to, have whatever conference you're volunteering at give back by allowing you to showcase your game. So yeah, I would highly recommend volunteering uh, if you've not done so already. So tip number two is some games definitely do better than others. Not to knock certain genres of games, but it's just the nature of the beast, with the fact that, conferences are online and people, there's tons of things going on right now. You could be doing a million other things than being here. It's really like what is going to pull people's attention? What's going to grab people the most and make them sit down and say, "Whoa, this looks interesting. I'm going to sit down and play this." In person, clearly it's very flashy games. One thing I always like to consider is like if you were doing an in-person conference, think of the conference showcase floor as like an arcade. When you go to an arcade, what is it that draws you to the games? Usually, they're simple. They they're really flashy. They're quick experiences. There's a lot of like feedback, like sound effect feedback is huge. Visual feedback is huge. It's that stimuli that I think really uh, visual and audio stimuli that is a big motivator for people to click on something or to go up to it. So here's a couple examples of projects that I've worked on that I've showcased at some various conferences. Uh, the main takeaway, I guess, is that just looking at all these games, all of them are fairly simple. I think it's something that you can visually understand just by taking a quick glance at it. The top left is like a mini game esque style game, like WarioWare. Different, very simple puzzles. Literally, they're one button games. Top right is like a little paper airplane flight simulator, and then like on the bottom of the screen is like a 2D side scroller. I think genres that have like one button games or just a couple buttons are really they do a lot better than some others. I've worked on a game that was heavily narrative focused. That was like a resource management game slash like dating sim. And while I really enjoyed the experience and it was cool to make like a game that you could play for hours, It just is not something that I would probably submit to a conference just solely for the fact of it. To really understand it and to get the most out of it, you have to sit there for a long period of time. And people's attention spans just, that's not, people don't have a lot of time when at conferences because there's so much things to do. So short, quick experiences are, those tend to do the best, for sure. So yeah, I would recommend one button games or a couple buttons, ones that are easy to pick up too. If you can sit down, play it, um, and find out what to do like in a matter of minutes, a matter of seconds. That's so key. As well as online conferences, you might not be there. In fact, you're probably not going to be there to give people instructions. And if people can't figure out how to play very easily, very quickly, then they might just give up and go do something else. So and then again, think back to that arcade um, thought. What makes an arcade game good will make a conference game good too. Tip number three, I would say, is presenting how you present your game is just as important, if not more important, than your game. I would say this is extremely prominent, in like a physical space because there's so many things that you can do to draw people's attention to your game, how you present it. And online conferences, it's more limited, but there are definitely still things you can do. So, for example, when I did Indiecade last year, you had to make an announcement about your game, or you could make an announcement about your game. And really, it's the small key details that go like such a long way. Because again, it's a lot of information. There's so many text channels. There's so many people posting stuff. What is going to grab people's attentions? Like it's like there's a reason why a social media manager is like an actual role at companies is because like it's an art form and it's important if you're really going to want people to click on your game, you're going to have to give them a reason why. You're going to have to give them something that'll stand out from other things. Something small, but like adding emojis into your messages, like oh my gosh, it goes a lot further than you think it would, because it's that visual imagery that catches people's eyes. They see, oh, like why is there this like you know little worm emoji? Why is there like this briefcase emoji? Uh, you know, it's the small things that go a long way, and sometimes you have to. It's the small things. Some of my suggestions would be of if you are trying to get people's attentions, if you're making an announcement for your games, I would say, include whatever you can. Of course, you got to make sure that you're within the guidelines of whatever conference you're presenting at. You don't want to do anything, that's not allowed. But adding in as many things to draw people's attentions is key. If you can include a trailer, if you have a thumbnail to your game, if you have a link to the download, if you have a Discord, I've seen at various other conferences, some people post a Discord primarily to their game that they've made. Again, look at the conference details of if you can do that or not, but the more you can present about your game, the better. This is another one that I think is super important that is, again, not really talked about a lot, but is getting creative with how you get people involved in your game. It might just be more than, here, play my game. A couple things I've seen people do in the past is like there's a high score that like a high score system that people can post about in the Discord of like current high score is X, Y, or Z, and like at the end of the day, you can post who got the top three scores, something like that. It's really good player engagement. Again, this is like super prominent as well in physical conferences, like physical spaces, having like a huge whiteboard with people's high scores. People are competitive in nature and seeing like, oh, this person got like 50 points. Well, I bet I could get 56, it's something that'll bring people in, and that's what you really want more than anything is give people a reason why to come over to your game and doing something more than just being, well, my game speaks for itself. you know you think that, but in reality there's a million other games, so why should I go to yours? And another thing super key is asking for feedback. People love to give their thoughts and opinions about things, and so if you're asking, hey, what did you think about this game, or if you make a post saying, hey, if anyone has feedback definitely feel free to message me or put your thoughts in the chat here or whatever. That's again more engagement, more of a reason why someone should play your game, is because the other person feels empowered. They feel, hey, this person might value my opinion, so I feel that they're a good person because they want my feedback, my opinion, and so I'll give it a shot. It's the small things that can really go a long way. So, say tip number 4 is that you're not just showcasing your game, but you're showcasing you. And what do I mean by this is that if you're really trying to look to break into the industry, it's not necessarily about what game you make, but it's about who you are and the impression that you leave on other people. So if you're at a conference, talk to as many people as you can, talk to other devs, you know, send people a message, be like, hey, I saw your game. I thought it looked great. Give feedback. Sometimes, people won't ask for feedback, but if you give it to them, trust me, people are always looking for feedback on their projects. And it also shows that you're interested in what other people are doing. You're not just there to sell your game. You're not just the only reason I'm here is because I want, people to see my game. The reason I'm here is because I love the industry. I love the work. I love the people. You don't have to say that outright, but like it speaks volumes when you show interest in others. And then, of course, being able to talk intellectually about your work. Um, when I was at DreamHack in 2017, it was like DreamHack mixed with the High Res Expo. So High Res, which is the people behind Smite. I was presenting my game, and I had someone walk up to me. They played my game, and they were asking a ton of questions about my design philosophy, and I was able to answer them to the best of my ability. And little did I know, but it was a designer from High Res, and he gave me his card and everything, and so you never know who you're going to be talking to. So if you can make that really good impression of, there's a reason behind everything of like why I did X, Y, or Z in my game. And if you can instill that in somebody, you never know what it's going to lead to. And conferences, of course, are a gold mine for networking. Like it's there's plenty of people here from the industry. Tara and I are both in the industry right now, so there's at least 2 people. But I know that there's plenty more. So and don't be afraid to like reach out to people because again, if you don't reach out, somebody else will. And so if you really want to make yourself stand out of the pack, you gotta reach out. I'm a huge introvert, but it's because I took the effort to go out and say hi to people at conferences. I made connections, and it got me in the door in the industry. So it's so important. Can't stress that enough. And then for the final tip, you got to submit your game. Like you just got to do it. It's sometimes really scary because it's like, oh, we might only be in beta, or we might be in alpha, or it's not as polished in X, Y, or Z. It's like, yeah, of course, a game can always be better. That's literally the case at all times. And you, of course, you've seen your game, you know where the flaws are, but you just got to submit. At some point, you got to submit your game, and you'd be surprised on how willing and accepting people are to embrace and accept your project. Like I love seeing games that are like, they've only been in production for a short amount of time. Like there's clearly bugs, there's can be improvement here, here, and here. But like again, that's always gonna be your game. There's always improvements. I submitted a game that I was so terrified to submit because I was like, this game sucks. I don't want to submit this. I hate this. But like I wanted to get it out there because I thought it was a good idea. I just thought it needed a lot of work. And while yes, it needed a lot of work and people pointed it out, people, you know, they really liked the idea. And that's, I think, you'd be surprised on how, again, accepting people in the industry and in the game dev community as a whole really are. So don't be afraid to put your game out there. I'd love to see whatever you're working on. Everyone has their own creative, you know, abilities. And so, yeah, if you don't submit your game, somebody else will. So I think you should do it. So just final takeaways overall. There are plenty conferences. Again, there's conferences locally, there's conferences, statewide conferences, there's national conferences, there's international conferences. and a lot of them are online right now and are just like begging for people to submit games. So definitely, they're not that hard to find. So go find them. Some genres do better than other genres. Again, I think quick games that are very short, games that are easy to understand. They give really good player conveyance, good feedback, polish, super important. Think again like arcade games. What makes an arcade game fun will make a conference game very fun. Proper presentation is key. Again, get creative with how you are presenting your game. Make an interesting like intro to your game. Bold, italicize, add emojis. Put a trailer. Put a screenshot. Literally whatever you can to be like, look, here's my game, and I'm not just writing a wall of text or just put the link and then be done. There's a lot more that you can do. And you want to showcase yourself, of course. Like if the reason that you're showcasing a game is because you want to get into the industry, or if you want to get into the industry as a whole, the primary thing you should be doing is not showcasing the game, but showcasing your talents, your abilities, why someone should hire you in the future. And then, of course, submit your game. That's clearly the most important thing. If you don't submit your game, then it's not going to be accepted. But I've submitted games that, trust me, need a lot of work, but they've been accepted. Obviously, conferences have standards, but at the same time, you know, you never know exactly, or if you don't submit your game, then it's just not going to be accepted. So submit it. You'd be surprised. So yeah, I'd say that's it for the most part. I'm on Twitter. Please feel free to email me. Got a website that's kind of sucks and needs a lot of improvement, but yeah, reach out to me. I'm on Discord too. Again, I would love to talk to anyone I can. I was literally in most of your situations like literally months ago. So I would love to, talk more, and I'd love to see your game. So submit them, and even feel free to message me them directly. I'd love to give feedback. I am a designer after all, so I will give as much feedback as I can. So open it up to Q&A. Have any questions?
We have a question from Riley on the Discord text channel. He asks, does it cost money to present your games at these sorts of conferences, and how have you dealt with any of those costs?
Yes, so it depends on the conference for sure. There have been a couple. I think Indiecade is like if you. It depends on when you submit. Some conferences are like if you submit early, then you get a discount. For example, last I submitted to Indiecade for this year. It was like $75 if you submit on time, like $100 if it was like late. And yes, I have. I Some of the ways I was able to fund that was actually directly through asking my school. I think that's another thing to also point out is that definitely don't be afraid to ask your professors or your school or whatever to be like, hey, I'm thinking of showcasing, my game at this conference. Is there any way you could, reimburse me for the matter? I mean, it's literally free publicity for the school. So uh, I got my back in 2017 and 2018, I was able to go in person to DreamHack in Atlanta. I got my school to pay for the conference, to pay for my hotel room, to pay for my flight, everything, because they just really believed in the matter, and it would make sense for a school to, want to support their students in their creative work. So reach out to your school, reach out to anyone that could maybe help if you're struggling financially. But TLDR, some conferences do cost, some don't. And on top of that, if you volunteer, some conferences might waive them. GDC, for example, I've volunteered for in the past, and um, I've had a I've heard some experiences where they waive fees if you're a volunteer. So again, not every conference, but there's always that potential.
Our next question from the chat is from, apologies if I butchered your name, Rohade. How many games have you submitted to conferences, and did you ever present solo or with a group?
It's a good question. I've presented one, two. I've presented 3/4 different games. I presented one game twice at a different conference, and most of the time, it's actually all the time. Yes, it's been with other people. And I think that's also a good experience because, it's a really good bonding moment and a really good connection point of if you're working with other people and you have that shared experience of volunteering together. If you remember back at like one of the first slides I had, there was me and a couple other people. I was the designer. We had a programmer, we had an audio person, we had an art person. It was like perfect, perfect four people right there. Everyone their own discipline. Great experience. Um, so yeah, and I think yeah, some games have definitely done better than others. Like one game was kind of a flop because I'll be honest, it was kind of rushed. But again, even the time that I had where I felt was a flop of a presentation, I still made connections and I still talked through a lot of my designs, and it was really helpful. Again, I would have rather that experience than to have not submitted at all and then not have an experience.
So, next one is Tyler Watts asks, have you had better results making connections slash networking through virtual showcase events or in-person showcases?
I think there's definitely pros and cons to both. I think the pros of being in person is that you're in person and you can do things like, for example, DreamHack, there was like a after party thing that people could go to where devs could go to. Like I went to this like German food place, and I just sat with some random devs and we talked over a bratwurst, about our games. And I was a sophomore at the time and they were like adults and were like a very successful like indie studio. But you know, it's you'd be surprised again how accepting people are. Like, just don't think just because you're a student, like you're not a game developer, you're not a designer. Like you still are, and people are very interested in what you have to say. So don't sell yourself short. So there's a lot of downtime and various things that you can do well in person that you can't do well online. That being said, you can online provides like that direct connection. Like you can friend somebody, you can send someone a friend request, and you can talk in DMs. You can meet one on one later. You could play games together. You could participate in conference talks like these as opposed to in-game like in-person conferences where sometimes talks are huge or people have to get going or uh, there's definitely different ways to connect online and virtually, but it doesn't make them any worse than an in-person experience, is what I would say.
Similarly, Everett Weber asks, do you have any tips for following up on any connections you may or may not have made at a conference?
Yeah, definitely. It's super important. It's okay. In person, giving another example with DreamHack, um, it's really scary to be like, can I have your contact information or like giving someone your contact information. Well, yeah, when I was a sophomore, I printed out business cards, and I was like, yeah, I'm so cool. I'm gonna like hand out business cards left and right. But like when the time actually came, I was like, oh, I feel like a freaking jerk because I'm like trying to sell myself in a sense because you want to make those connections, you want to be able to follow up with people. But again, you'd be surprised with how accepting people are of the matter. Everyone's been in your position of like wanting to break into the industry, and you gotta give people your contact information, and it's you can ask too. um Again, a great segue is if someone comes up to you, and plays your game, and they're giving you feedback, you could be like, "Oh, could I have your contact information? I'd love to talk to you more about the matter." Or, I'm planning on making some updates now based on what you said, and so, I'd love to send you, a newer build with, some of your suggestions. It's a great segue of like, hey, let's continue to talk, but not just for no reason whatsoever. So having some sort of segue, um, again, showcasing your game is a great way to have that segue of like, hey, we've been talking about my game. I'd love to talk further through DMs or whatever. Or again, what I said earlier with talking to other devs, like approaching other people playing their games, giving feedback, um, you know, getting their contact information through that same matter is a great way to do so. But yeah, again, if the plans are in the future to go back to in-person conferences, which I could see, you know, business cards, they're I would say that they're useful. Um, and it's a very scary experience to try to like sell yourself in a sense. But again, it's worthwhile. And if you can just kind of get over that fear, there's a lot of people who don't, but it's the people who do that get jobs. So
Right. Next question is from Connor Ellis. Is it ill advised to make and submit games with difficult subject matter like horror games?
I would say definitely, check the conference like rules and guidelines and stuff. If they're saying, like, no gore or, no like games with like sexual suggestion or anything like that, you know, then obviously follow those guidelines. I would say don't limit yourself though without having a reason to. Uh, and worst comes to worst, if there is no guidelines and then your game gets rejected and the reason is because, oh, well, we don't want something with, sensitive material in it, then, well, then you know. But again, if you don't submit because you're like, oh, they'll probably turn it down, like, don't presume, is what I'm saying. So, yeah, check the guidelines. But if there is not a clear reason as to why you shouldn't, then I'd say go for it.
All right. And the next question from Rohaid again is: are hackathons also a good place to put your foot in the door?
Yeah, I mean, again, literally doing anything outside of school goes a long way. Again, I knew a lot of great people who, got straight A's in classes and who did great work in school. But it's being able to say on your resume, on your portfolio, hey, look, I did something that wasn't assigned to me. I did this on, my own merit. I decided to do X, Y, or Z. Um, that goes a long way. People, companies can sniff out very easily if you've just done the bare minimum or have only done things that have been assigned to you. Companies look for if you have that passion, if you have that drive to do things on your own, like a sense of autonomy. Like in my line of work, right away, I kind of like had to, sink or swim almost in a sense. But I think my company believed in me because they saw, all the things I did, on my own. And so something like a hackathon, perfect. Like, that's just another step of like, hey, look, I'm doing something. I'm reaching out, and I really love what I do. It's not just I'm doing this because I'm been assigned or because I was told to go to school or whatnot. So yes, absolutely.
Right, and I believe that was all the questions from the text channel on Discord. Did anybody else have any last minute questions before we wrap up? Oh, we have a few people typing in the chat, so we can take a moment to wait.
Um, if you also want to use your mic, that's fine too. Don't be scared.
Chelsea asks, shout out a favorite game of yours you've showcased.
My favorite game that I've showcased is the one that's kind of like in the background of my slides. It's called Match Ride Rescue. I actually made it in a game jam in 2017, which again another tip I'd probably give if I had to add another one is finding ways to again make games that are good for conferences, and I think game jams are like a huge gold mine for that because usually the games you make in game jams are kind of like almost conference centered in the sense of they're short, quick, a high sense of polish, but so Match Ride Rescue again was made in 2017. The theme was Gotta Match. and the gameplay was you are a small bug in like a thimble hot air balloon, and you use like a tiny matchstick to like light your hot air balloon, and it's this like vertical platformer, like 2D vertical platformer where you have to like avoid spikes, like collect your little buggo friends. And we had about a week to the game jam was about a week long, and then we made the core concept. We submitted it to the game jam event itself. It got pretty good reception. It was like one level, and then a friend of mine actually told me about a conference that was like accepting games, and he said that you should apply. And so I approached my friends who were who were working on it at the time, and I was like, hey, we could submit this to a conference. Let's just polish it a little bit more before doing so. So we made a second level. We improved the mechanics, fixed some bugs, and yeah, we submitted it, and there was just really no time when I was like, I hate this game, or like this game sucks. It was like a really small, short, fun experience that I feel like a lot of people picked up on like very easily. So, and it's like a really cute subject matter too. Like I don't know, I found it adorable. So definitely my favorite game I've made.
Rohit asks, what's the scope of projects we should aim for to showcase? Should we aim for a game that lasts about half an hour or even less?
Yeah, again, like I would say honestly a very short experience. Like if you could get a game that people could play like in 5 minutes, 10 minutes, I'd say even at max, like 30 minutes is a lot of time for one person to spend on one thing at a conference. A conference like let's take SGDA for example, it's like 2 days. There's so many things to do. Like there's a talk that happens, like every hour basically. And, a half hour is a long time for someone to spend on again one thing. So honestly, the shorter the better. I'd say, make it longer than like a 30-second experience, but like a couple minutes can really go a long way. Or something that has quick replayability factors to it is also really helpful. So it's kind of like a short experience, but you can play it as many times, as you want. Is really helpful. Or something that has like multiple levels. That way people can kind of like jump in and out very quickly. Like there was a mobile puzzle game that was presented at DreamHack in 2018. That was really people really liked because it was again you could pick up the mechanics literally at any point. And what you could be done basically at any point. Like each level was only a couple minutes long, like a minute long maybe. And then if you're done with the level, then you just leave. But if you want to keep playing, then you can keep playing. So as opposed to something like, again, I made a huge narrative like resource management game where it takes like a half hour just to like understand, the core mechanics. So yeah, I would say a couple minutes would be really good.
Right, and I believe those were all the questions from the Discord text channel for now. And as always, this text channel will be open, so if anybody has any further questions for Luke or would like to discuss more about the content of his talk, then please feel free to use this text channel. As for Luke, do you have any last parting thoughts for the audience?
Yeah, I would say everyone should give like a virtual round of applause to the officers who are here. Like there is so much effort that is put behind conferences. Again, I volunteered at multiple conferences, and so when you see kind of over the fence of like what actually it takes to put on something like this, is pretty astounding. And it's a conference, and you're volunteering, so like there's probably not a whole lot of pay, if any at all, involved in putting like something like this together. So I want to thank all the officers in here for all the awesome time and effort they're putting in to make this showcase, to make this event, as great as it is.
Thank you, Luke. That really means a lot. And I also just want to thank Luke for having like this wonderful student talk. I hope everybody got something out of that, learned something new. And I want to thank like the entire audience for attending his talk.
Yeah, thanks so much, guys. Again, we'll post links and stuff, but definitely feel free to reach out to me, send me your games. I will play them. I'll play all of them.